If you would share what you guys are doing, who you guys are, and just a tiny bit about your family.
3 kids, 15, 12, and 9. And our oldest has Down syndrome and our youngest has Down syndrome. And we're family brought together by adoption. And so, yeah, disability space is our space. And so we have a daughter, there's Mason, she's 15, a daughter, Truly, who's 12, and then August is our son, who's 9. Yeah.
And we were an organization called The Lucky Few, which is an advocacy marketing brand that we are all about shifting the narrative around Down syndrome and telling a bigger Down syndrome story. We did that through a podcast. I'm an author, through social media collaborations and brand collaborations and storytelling. Just letting people, creating a space for people in the Down syndrome community to get to share their true and authentic story around Down syndrome and get this out to the world.
You guys do such an amazing job of just telling that story and giving families hope and encouragement and allowing other people to share their story of hope, because everybody's got their own unique way of how they found hope and what impact means. So you guys do awesome. I love your work.
Thank you.
So when you previously thought about planning for your family's future and you thought about what that meant, what did the term planning mean to you and what type of emotions got stirred up?
I would say it always felt daunting. It was something from the time our oldest daughter Macy entered our life. I think if she didn't have a disability, I'd feel this way, but because she does, and it really does, we can assume that her future will look different than if she didn't have Down syndrome. That it was this thing like whispering in my ear constantly, like there's something you need to do here to make a plan, but for my skill set and my knowledge around what we would need to plan for, it just felt out of control. I think, daunting and out of control, and therefore just something that I kept putting on the side. Like I'll get to that next year. We'll try that next year. Oh yeah, I listened to this thing. We should try to reach out to that person. Months go by, years go by, and then we weren't doing it.
And we really, if the thought of planning, it was like, who do we talk to?
Yeah.
And we didn't have access to a knowledge base or a company that actually knew what we needed, which that felt really frustrating. And yeah, so the thought of planning was like, we have to do this. It just nagged at us.
Yeah.
Okay. So feeling daunting, feeling overwhelmed and frustrated with all this, and Heather, to your point, just putting it to the side.
Yeah.
What did that spiral of, I guess, events, what did that continue to do? How'd you guys feel?
I mean, I started to feel defeated. I remember we had a couple different financial advisors just as adults. I think sometimes adults have those, and even in bringing the conversation up, recognizing our situation is unique and it's not something that everyone in the financial industry understands. And then we met with a person that is like, they do special needs trust. Like, oh, we need a special needs trust. Then we go through a whole process, and even at the end of that, it's like, well, wait, there's now 3 more steps after our interaction with you. And so then it's frustration. And for me, when I feel overwhelmed and frustrated, my go-to is to shut down or to put it aside. So then it just keeps, you just, like you said, spiraling down to the point of continuing to put it aside.
Yeah.
Which is what we did.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
What would you say your biggest challenge was in finding either the team or finding the solutions so that you didn't feel like you were spiraling?
It just felt like hours and hours of work. That's like when we started, and it never came to fruition. The one that we started with, and I think it had holes in it, and I think for me the biggest challenge was the lack of a tailored plan, like the lack of an advocate who knew our situation, who could come alongside us and say, I understand your story. I understand the uniqueness of your family, because we're a very unique family, and we couldn't. No one could seem to understand what we had and what we wanted to plan for. Yeah, so that felt like it never happened. It just year after year we would try it, and then we'd lack something, and so it was. I just needed my hand to be held.
Totally. And until we knew about Enable, we just didn't know that something like this existed. We knew we needed it, we didn't know how to put words around it or like frame it up the way that what Enable offers. But until we knew about Enable, it was like once we found out about what you did, it's like it put a framework on, oh, this is exactly what we needed, that we didn't know how to know we needed it. There was just this void, like this nagging void of this is important,
Sure.
but what do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you guys know my story, but just seeing what my parents went through, and for me, as a proud big brother, looking at planning and thinking, no, it can't just be focused on these fragmented pieces that somehow should fit together, but don't seem like they do. It's got to be a bigger picture of providing purpose and allowing for our loved ones to have joy and happiness and fulfillment every single day of their life, right? So,
Yeah.
and we've talked so much about that for your kids, each of your kids individually, and for you guys too. And I know that was a draw to our team, but what else about our process? What else about the experience have drew you to us, I guess?
I I I like that you met us where we were at, and like I've mentioned a couple of times, just within my skill set and my personality, I'm just not like a fill out the chart, turn in the thing, get it in the mail, send the email. All that is hard for me. And y'all were very gracious in your persistence and letting us be who we are and not giving up on us. And I feel like there's like even tailoring things to work for us and pivoting to meet us where we're at. And yeah, like Josh said, like a real hand holding, like don't give up on us. We can do this together. Yes, this is hard. Yes, this conversation needs to happen. We've got you. Like we've got you. We've got you. Just a reassurance of that along the way. And we needed our hands held.
Yeah.
And that's what y'all did and showed up in each different space to get us where we needed to be. You never gave up on us.
Well, and I think too, I think about this is such a personal, intimate thing. You really are getting to know people's families. And so you get into all of it. And that takes a unique company, I think, to hold the value of someone's story and someone's unique family and come into all the personal stuff, then also be diligent and taking step by step, educating us and pushing it forward. So I think there's a customer service part of this that has a lot of heart to it, not just numbers and steps. And it wasn't like a cold fill out, put this in the portal kind of thing. It was like, oh yeah, it has to be a unique, curated, individual thing. And we totally needed that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were my frustrations early in my career, just seeing that planning was a cookie cutter process. It's the same for my family and your family and the family before that, right? And then we all know that every family is unique, and especially when we're talking about purpose, we're talking about the individual of why we're planning and how we can create a great future. It's going to look vastly different for everybody.
Yeah.
But then there's that overarching fear of the unknown for the future. So there is a part of planning that's got to give you a foundation of knowing that no matter what happens, the family's taken care of, right? And so talk to me about the fear of the unknowns for you guys when it comes to planning and how you felt through our process in alleviating some of that.
I will say my fear for the future can't ever really be alleviated because my fear is my kids will live without me. And Lord willing, they will, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the hope. And everything about that makes me want to curl up in a ball and cry. That's my issue to work out. So that there's the fear is looming for me, but if I think about their future without us, and let's say like in a very tragic way that happens tomorrow, without what we've done, the planning process with Enable, I would be a wreck.
Yeah.
I would be a wreck because there would be no plan. And I would know that my Mason needs a person or people, a community, like finances. Like she needs all this stuff that it takes planning to put into place. It can be put into place.
Yeah.
So that does alleviate so much stress, fear of the unknown, sure. I honestly could wake up in the morning and go to bed more easily knowing that there's a plan for my kids. And with the process that you guys do, that it's not just we made a plan and it's done. It's a revisiting. And we've had this year, we had some really tough things happen in our family, and we've had to rewrite the plan to even be able to do that, and in that process, the conversations I'm having with the people I need to have conversations with, I'm just like hysterical because I'm like, you will never love Mason the way that I do.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. That's just the truth. Um, and that it's like the both and you hold that's true, and we need a plan, and both things need to be true. And there will be people who will love her and support her, and August, our son, that we have on paper, that everyone will know what they need to do next, instead of just like the thought of my kids just being like going from one place to the next because there's no plan in place, and this person all of a sudden can't, and there's just no idea what needs to happen, especially thinking of our oldest, who like consistency is so important, and her personality is one like to have a structure and to have a plan. So it alleviates so much anxiety for me.
Yeah.
Anything?
I mean, you said a lot. I think so. I didn't grow up with planners, and so it was always kind of a nagging. Oh man, I really, what more can you give to your kids, whether it's now or later, than stability and support and a team?
Mm,
And I mean, really, like Heather said, no one can take care of our kids like we can, but this is the next best thing. It really is. And
right.
so, yeah, no one wants to talk about it, but I love that you create space to talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the hard things. Hey, you need to have that hard conversation with whoever you need to have that hard conversation with. And this is reality, because every day reality hits your
Yeah.
family. So, yeah, what a gift that is to just be able to walk through that. Yeah.
And so having those tough conversations, nobody enjoys them, and it's such a small piece that's needed to be had. But once we have those and we can pull out of that, what does that allow you guys to do when you look to your family's future?
I mean, sleep at night.
Right. Right.
I think,
There's a real sense of security. Sorry to interrupt
yeah,
you. And it's not a false security. It's like there's real security there, in that there's this plan. There's a plan in place to make
yeah,
sure our kids are well loved. And I even appreciate y'all have walked us through, like, thinking about how, if it ever happened that they're without us and our kids, and even Mason way in the future, when it happens that she doesn't have us around, how to make a plan that's least disruptive for her. And that's a hard conversation to have too, because it's like talking to the family member who has their own life. And you're like, well, wait, that family member might not be the best choice because this other family member could actually maybe move here, right?
yeah,
Or whatever it is. I'd never thought about that before. It was just like, this person makes the most sense. So even in that,
yeah,
there's a sense of security in knowing that, because the hard conversations have been had, we looked at a lot of options too, right? And that there are way more options than we realized. Um, and even security in, like, knowing that it's going to change, like that's part of it. That's also
yeah,
part of the process. And we have new people in our life who have become like family, that you've given us the tools again and the framework to say to them,
yeah,
hey, our reality is such that our kids are going to need care past adulthood. Um, we'd love for you to be a part of that future, right? Like, that we can have those conversations, and this is what that means, and you can say no, and like knowing exactly what that looks like, instead of just like, oh yeah, well, we'd love to care for your kids, we got them, right? It's like, okay, let's really talk about that. So yeah, it's a long way to answer, just like a real sense of security.
Sure. And that security is always going to change, right? I think you said
Yeah.
it's ever evolving, and those new people come in your life, and that makes life exciting, and that makes life. Uh, it also makes life challenging at the same time, because right, we don't have a crystal ball, we don't know what's going to be, but we have talked so many times about the mindsets and limited mindset versus abundant mindset, and we each have a choice in that. So, how do you guys? What does abundance mean for your family as you guys look to your future, for the kids and for you?
it's a really good question. Honestly, I think is when you first ask that, I think I go to finances, but really, I think finances provides space for our kids to belong. And so I think at the end of the day, abundance looks like someone who knows and cares for our kids, right? Really knows them. However, it's just not that easy. And so I think part of that is being smart right now and being good stewards. I think stewardship or abundance follows stewardship. And so what does it look like for us to be really good stewards of what we have so that there is abundance? I think we live in abundance and it, yeah, just being well cared for, I think is that's how I would answer it. Not like having more than enough. It's like just enough to take care of our kids that they feel loved and cared for.
I love that. And that always changes too, right? Their path is going to look very different 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And how do we support them in abundance of being
Yeah.
cared for, of being provided for, having abundant opportunities to impact the world and make a difference, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, for sure.
Access and opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think abundance definitely looks like now and in the future, having that sense of security, having a place of belonging. And what we need to make that happen. It's gonna look different for everybody and look different in each season, but I feel like we are living in that right now. Like our kids know they are adored and we have an opportunity to create a safe space for them be to feel a sense of belonging, and we can continue to find those spaces for them and hope for that everywhere we go in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. I love your guys' viewpoint of abundance because oftentimes people do think of it as a financial abundance, which it's not how I think of it, right? That's not the conversations that we have, and it's tied to finances a little bit because
Sure.
opportunities take money, but that's not the center focus of that.
Yeah.
And how many people do you know who have so much money and feel totally empty? Like don't never say they have abundance in anything, right?
Sure.
Like I
Absolutely.
make me feel like that
Yep.
time to time.
100%. 100%. Yeah. What would you say that our team's family and your journey with our process and our support how has that impacted your family?
I think I kind of laugh a little bit because it's such an adult thing to do. And sometimes we just don't want to do the adult things. And so I'm just, you guys did all the work, but I'm really proud of us. I'm really proud to say that we have a plan, we have a trust, we have a team, we have resources. And as much as I take the credit on this side, it's really your team that put it together. And so, yeah, I'm just, there's such a peace about it. There is a sense of like, okay, we're going to be all right. And even in triage and in trauma and in horrible events to come, God willing, those don't happen. There's a sense of peace knowing you guys are going to hold it together.
And the approach from your team has always, like you said, it's never been cookie cutter. It has been, what are your child's aspirations and dreams? What does your family need? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for their sibling? What does that mean for extended family? How do we create a plan that's specific to your child so that your child can thrive, which you recognize looks different. My child thriving looks different than your sister thriving or whoever else, right? It's going to be a different kind of plan. But at the end of the day, the team is coming alongside us, like mobilizing us towards this path towards abundance for our specific children, our specific family.
Yeah. Honestly, one more thing, that before we talked to you and Tom, we had never met anyone that understood the uniqueness of our story and our family and really what to do with it. And so that was frustrating to meet professionals that would say they could take care of us, but that it just never came. And so you have a really unique thing going on. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And it's all credit to my sister and how much of a challenge and struggle my parents had in putting a plan together for her, right?
Yeah.
Sarah was such a blessing from day one. There's challenges, there's health concerns. she was an amazing part of her family. But the thing that was the struggle was my parents didn't know what to do. And they
Yeah.
tried to piece things together with different professionals, and none of it seemed to work. And they never felt at peace about the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that was really helpful for me in the whole process was that we don't have a ton of money, or nor are we getting inheritances from either side of our family. And that even in that, it's just so personalized. It's like you meet us exactly where we're at
Mhm.
and create opportunities that it's like I didn't know that existed. Like I didn't know this opportunity existed.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
then when I'm talking to family members and the creating the actual tangible plan that makes us have a sense of security, it's like come alongside our kids, and we're not just handing you a kid. You know, it's like we've got all these things in place that I didn't even know we would have an opportunity to do that. I think there's a sense of like financial planning is for really rich people. It's like no, it's for everybody, and
Yeah.
especially the whole package planning, like for families like ours.
Sure. Yeah. And it comes to the focus. Is the abundance about money, or is the abundance about opportunities and security? And that's got to be center, and that's got to be the focus. And financial planning is part of that. And it's for everybody, because everybody has the ability to make a difference in this world. And that's what you guys believe. That's on your podcast. And that's what we believe, is we're helping families place unique plans in place. So,
Yeah. The tricky thing though is that you have to do the extra work in the disability space to make sure there is a future for your kids. Where a lot of times, if you have neurotypical family dynamic, it kind of just is easy to go meet someone and plan. But with us, it's so different, and our kids have they have just unique needs, and so that I think that is something when you're raising kids with disabilities, you have to work to make that plan. And I think that's what I would challenge other families is like, do it now, call these guys, whatever, make that plan because it's so much harder in this space, but it's so worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I love your point there. I tell families all the time that I'm not the expert on their child, right? I can help build that foundation and put plans in place that allows them to sleep at night, in your words, and allows all these moving pieces to fit together. And families have shared with me that that just alleviates so much pressure from them and creates so much opportunity for them to go plan above and beyond. Have you guys experienced that with our team? Has you guys been able to focus on other things besides planning because of the journey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, outside of our time with you guys, I'm not worried about this kind of stuff at all, because I'm not worried about it within our time with your team either. But because you guys have our back, and because you've created an able to come alongside in such helpful ways. Like it works. And so yeah, I don't think about it at all. Which is
Yeah,
amazing, right? Like that's such a gift. Such a gift.
I think it's just opened up more opportunities too. Like, oh, I didn't know that we could think of our middle daughter's college plan like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think once you start learning, there was so much nuance to all this, we just didn't know, and so yeah, that definitely opens up more opportunity for sure. Yeah.
So for families who are wrestling with this, just the decisions and feeling overwhelmed and feeling the daunting pressure of putting a plan in place, just how would you, as a parent, recommend that they just look at planning and look about the future and think about opportunities? What's your advice?
I mean, I would start by saying all those feelings are so valid. I mean, those are very real, valid feelings. And like, just, you don't have to be an expert in it. Find the experts.
Yeah.
It literally is a phone call or an email to the right people, who are you, who's able to do it alongside you. Like, it's not something you're doing alone. It's okay that you don't know how to do it. Other people do know how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's make that phone call, send that email, do what you need to do, and let the other people do what they're experts at.
Yeah, I would just say they'll meet you where you're at. we start and stopped with you, and so they'll meet you on your timeline. I'd say just start. There's some momentum that will happen.
Yeah.
And maybe you've been waiting for some sort of nudge. Just start. That's what I would say.